right?
Yeah, I don't hear an echo.
Okay.
I don't hear, hey, everyone, Dr. Kennard here with John Hudson and 420 Atheist, not the 420 Atheist, but just 420 Atheist. So Austin, John was just talking about, Austin there was a initiative that got voted down about the police budget increasing.
Yes. Astronomically, I want to say it was $6 billion over a certain amount of time, making it to where there would be two officers for every 1,000 people. And it was voted down like 67 to 33.
I'll just say what I think a lot of us are thinking, that the fact that a lot of police officers, or some police officers, perhaps the most toxic of them, are quitting because they won't get jabs, because they won't get vaccinated.
Sayonara, motherfucker.
How can that not be a net positive for everyone, right? How, if you get people who are basically saying, not only do we not care about protecting and serving, but we don't understand or accept basic science.
Yeah.
If they leave, I think we should be throwing parties. We should be throwing celebrations. Maybe a pinata. I don't know if there should be a pinata involved, but I'm a big fan of pinata.
Make them into pinatas, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, what's up, black female atheist? And evening to Sandy. That's right. It is evening. Or morning. I think it's
Very considerate of you.
I When I read that, I thought it said even Sammy.
That's like that too, dude. It's like, wow.
No, I'm just saying Sammy always gets special consideration because we love him so much.
This is true.
We love our brother
Love-
down there.
Love you too, John.
Have a low power day. Can't run my modem. That sucks, Tillman.
Yeah, this dial-up internet sucks, doesn't it?
So how you doing, Sam?
Good. I have a child waking up. I'll be right back.
Okay, dude. That's a laugh.
Something else I saw, I was watching the news this morning, and there was 3,900 new COVID cases, 3,200 people that are hospitalized,
Yeah.
and 167 new deaths. So if you go to the hospital in Texas with COVID, I broke down the math. It's 1 in 23 chance of dying.
Yeah.
The odds are pretty fucking real,
Yeah. Even under normal circumstances, going into a hospital, and I don't want to sound crazy, like a crazy person, but going into a rehab facility after surgery, you can catch something there. It isn't like the 19th century where you're going into the hospital, you're pretty much, there's a good chance you're not coming out. But still, there's definitely a case to be made to try to stay in as good as health as humanly possible, for as long as humanly possible. I'm sure that everyone has heard at least someone who has had a surgery got botched, or something going, or getting an infection, or something going sideways while, in a hospital.
Yeah, I've personally never had a problem, but yeah, I remember a friend got MRSA.
Oh yeah, dude. Yeah, that's for real.
Dude, and I was like a dozen years ago or more.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what the fuck? You go to the hospital and you come out with a wound like that,
Yeah. I was reading an article the other day, because I read like a bunch of articles before picking out like an article or pieces to share on the first show, and people, and this is going to be gross, right? So I want to tell everyone, but there are therapeutic uses for maggots.
Yeah.
Right? And because maggots not only eat dead flesh, but they also provide antibacterial and antiviral properties, believe it or not. So that not only will the maggots get rid of dead flesh, but they will also protect against infections at the same time, because I guess maggots don't want to eat infections. They don't want to eat infected flesh. They want to eat dead flesh, but they don't necessarily want there to be infections. So doctors will use maggots to get rid of dead flesh around MRSA sites while they help fight the infection. They only do it for a couple of days, from what I read in the article. Yeah.
That's interesting.
I thought it was interesting too.
You know?
Medical uses for MRSA, because against these, against these antibiotic resistant kind of, problems there. Yeah.
Yes, sir. That's very interesting. Yeah. I've never heard that.
Yeah.
But, it makes total sense.
It does. It does. And the funny thing that they mentioned in the article too is that people are like, well, can't we just take the maggots and use this special serum and make it into an ointment? And it's like, well, it's not the same thing. It's like, it's difficult to milk maggots, I imagine, for their special properties. And even though it's gross, putting maggots on, wounds, but if it works, it works.
I've heard that leech is used for something like that. I read somewhere or saw something, probably on a YouTube video.
Yeah, right. But because I've read something similar from legitimate news sources that there are legitimate medical uses for leeches as well as for maggots.
Mm-hmm.
It isn't like the Middle Ages where they're like, we're just gonna bleed you. We're just gonna bleed you to get your humors.
You need a good bloodletting.
You need a good bloodletting. We think your bile is out of sync with your phlegm.
And we've got to check the knots on your head too to make sure that everything's
right. I am so glad that knobs on heads, phrenology, I believe is the proper phrenology, because I have such a weird head. Like, you only see this side of my head, but when you see like the other, I got a big freaking head and it's all kind of weird and bumpy and stuff. So I'm just glad phrenology isn't around, because they would probably think, this guy's head, it's just all wrong. We have to replace it.
So here's an interesting fact. In the 1600s, sorry.
Okay.
When it was still the most common procedure was putting a hole into your skull.
Intrepidation.
Yeah. The safest place to do it, they were doing it in London, England, but they were also doing it, like it was doing it everywhere in the world. The safest place was apparently in the Americas. The Incas, or whoever was this around the 1600s, forgive my lack of ancient history, but their survival rate was 8 in 10, or so, I guess 4 out of 5.
Interesting.
Where in London, it was like 9 out of 10 wouldn't make it.
Wow.
And they had better tools and stuff like that, but it was to do with the infections.
Oh, sure. Right.
And they actually had plants and things specifically that they used that made them so successful, even though their process was a little bit more barbaric.
Well, rock, the flints and stuff are very sharp. In fact, they're finding that doctors are using rock knives rather than surgical steel in order to cut the people. And if you look at the wound under the microscope, where it's cut with the rock, it's just like clean. But with the finest surgical steel, it'll look like somebody went through it with a serrated knife.
Yeah. I know that. I mean, and you can see this in folklore and myth, right? Like silver has certain antimicrobial
Hmm.
and I believe antiviral properties to it. That's how you get like werewolves being killed by silver. Like there's some kind of medicinal purpose properties to it. And also, there's like I just googled this up. It's like garlic, like these home remedies. They're not as good as they're not as good as our medicine today. But in a pre-scientific era, it's like, well, maybe if you just use garlic and something silver, then maybe that'll help the wound. Because like I said, I just googled this, and I'm looking at something from StanfordChildren's.org from I think it's Stanford. Is that garlic contains allicin? It's a strong antibiotic. It's released when cloves are crushed or chewed. Excuse me.
I got an abscess tooth during the COVID, and I didn't want to go to the dentist, or really needed an antibiotic. And my son-in-law was telling me about garlic,
Yeah.
and I put some garlic on the barbecue and roasted it to where it was soft, and packed it around that damn tooth, and the abscess went away.
Oh, that's good, dude.
I mean, I got it fixed since, but yeah, it took care of that problem.
Excellent.
And I'm a firm believer about copper. It just having copper on you helps your joints and stuff.
Well, I was talking with a girlfriend about this because there was some kind of copper like socks, copper socks or something.
Yeah, I've seen them.
And it's like we were talking about it. Now she's a lot smarter than I am. She's actually in the field, like of data and
Andy.
farm and medicine and stuff like that. This is how stupid people talk about what smart people do. By the way, if you want to know, this is this right here.
That is this right there.
Well, Andy, copper does have some medicinal properties to it. It's not as good as silver, but it does have some, I guess, some kind of antibacterial, antiviral properties to it.
Well,
We've had this conversation, Andy. You didn't believe me about the socks, and we looked them up, and I shared the link, and you were like,
Yeah.
I've got
because I own some, and it stops the smell.
It stops the smell, right? Because yep.
I have 2 pair of them, and they come clear up to my knees. They're like awesome. You can wear them all day long, and it does help with the fatigue of the foot.
Sure.
I mean, a good pair of socks will, anyways.
Oh, right.
So
Tobin says, my dad is an engineer that works on designing medical scalpels. Wow, that's pretty cool.
that is way cool.
Yeah.
They're making them out of rocks. I
That's
mean,
a legitimate question.
yeah, it is a legitimate question.
Yeah.
Well, specifically, it's obsidian,
Yeah.
which is a volcanic glass.
Yes.
So it's really hard.
Mhm.
And if you can break it just right,
Right.
it's scalpel sharp.
Mm-hmm.
Well, those were the tools that primitive man used, quite effectively too.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And John, this is interesting. So I've seen it was on YouTube. And it was people looking at some of those ancient cities where they can't explain how they managed to cut, these massive stones, and stones made out of the hardest substance around, that we would have to use like diamond tipped saws and things nowadays. Well, someone had a theory, and they went and dug up the area all around where the rocks were quarried, and then even where they were shaped and put into place, and they found crushed diamond.
Oh, you
really?
kidding?
No. And what they found that when they grind the same stone on itself with the diamond
Yeah,
dust,
it would.
that it cuts. And
it
so,
would be a delivery tool. Yes, for sure.
and so they think they were using diamond to cut these things
But
thousands of years ago.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
but what I don't understand is like on some of the basalts and stuff, there's vitrification on it, where it's been brought to high heat, you know, and then also like where the rocks are cut and there's like little bow ties in them, where they uh, were connected the two rocks together with a liquid metal, and this is in architecture all around the world.
Hmm.
But who in the hell made a mobile furnace to smelt that? It's crazy.
Well, yeah, I don't know anything about this. I know that, yeah. I can confidently say that I am ignorant in metal
Smelting.
smelting with rocks. I can say that. From what I do understand, though, is that knowledge, especially in when you look at a map, right? And this is me imagining a map. When you look at Europe, Asia, and there was a lot of trade and a lot of conversations going on. Information spread pretty quickly. If something was discovered in, let's say, Mesopotamia, in like what's modern day Iraq or Iran, eventually it would be transferred over to, let's say, Western Europe. It would take some time, perhaps, or over to Asia, and vice versa. There was this
Commerce.
There was commerce, exactly. In North America and South America, of course, being separated from that information highway, they just didn't have the benefits of that kind of communication. And this is just basically guns, germs, and steel kind of stuff from that book. And while that is not 100% on point, guns, germs, and steel, I think there's something to be said about, this hemisphere, the Western hemisphere, just being cut off from that information superhighway, basically, in ancient times.
But still, a lot of the architectural technique and such is found throughout the world.
Yeah.
And it's just something that I've dove into a long time ago, and it interests me. I love prehistory. You know.
Yeah.
When they found Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, it changed the whole paradigm of what archaeologists have been saying for years. That we were just hunter gatherers. We didn't build places. Göbekli Tepe, what made it special was they actually buried it.
Oh, really?
Yes, 10,000 years ago, they buried it. It was intentionally buried. And so they're able to date off that with quite certainty,
Interesting.
that it wasn't contaminated and such.
Right.
And since then, there's all kinds of these areas around in Turkey that they're finding these ancient monoliths. And when you cut out a stone 3-dimensional and then have animals actually protruding, you have to get rid of all that excess material in order to have this little animal stick out. I mean, these T-shaped pillars, they weigh thousands of tons. I mean, not thousands of tons, but many tons.
Yeah.
Or they're erecting. It's almost like we had a civilization that was wiped out. That there's technologies that were lost. I look at it as if we had global cataclysm now. The people that are going to survive are the people that live out in the jungles, and such. And who's going to carry on the technology,
Yeah. Well, no, you're spot on about this whole apocalypse thing, right? In case, let's say that, well, you look at like what happened during the Black Death, right? Isaac Newton just kind of said, I think I'm going to be out. I'm going to be leaving London while this plague is going on, while this current upsurge of the plague is going on, and just head out to the country. I think, Yeah, when you have like all these people natted together into cities, and you have a plague, then the safest place is to be outside of the city limits.
Yeah, makes sense.
And
I find comfort, with COVID. I was able to bunker down here,
oh yeah. Um, Yeah, this is a quote from Jared Diamond, who wrote Guns, Germs, and Steel. It's the basic premise. Someone asked him from New Guinea, New Guinea native asked him, why you white men have so much and New Guineans have so little. And that was basically the inspiration for him to write Guns, Germs, and Steel. And the thing is with Guns, Germs, and Steel, and I'm sure that most of you who read nonfiction will notice this, is that 1/3 of the book is the data, and then the 2/3 of the book is just kind of like churning over the data. And so so I read through 1/3 of the book. It's like, oh, he's just restating his points over and over again.
I find that in them kind of writings a lot.
Yeah, well, you feel that people get paid by the fucking words sometimes, right? You get that impression.
D.
Happy birthday.
17. So how long were you in labor for, D Parks? My ex-wife with our first, she was in labor for over a day. It was 26 hours, I think. It was insane. At least, I mean, any amount of labor in my mind is kind of like, wow, that's a lot. But yeah, she was 26 hours in labor with our first.
So that's a happy birthday and a happy Labor Day.
I like what you did there, John Hudson. 5 points. 5 points to John Hudson.
That was a cool comment she had, but I meant her next comment, which is, we're one large solar flare from the Dark Ages.
Well, that
Just
is
so true and scary.
Yeah.
Or a comet.
Comet, solar flare, radiation from some supernova.
Trumpism.
EMP.
Trumpism. It's interesting to note that for most of human civilization, there were ruins from a higher civilization, or more developed and technological. So let's say you were in Italy, right? This is a classic example. If you're in Italy during the Middle Ages, you'd be walking around Roman ruins and you'd be like, I have no idea how they did that. No clue. Or if you were in, during the Bronze Age collapse, right? You would be walking around maybe somewhere in Israel and you go and like, I have no idea how they did that.
Well, we have proof in modern history of what a volcano in one area, what it'll do to the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The another classic example is the Tunguska incident.
Tunguska.
I think that was in 1905.
Yep.
And
early 1900s.
Yeah, and that I've heard it was a comet. It exploded in Siberia, and you could see the effects in London.
Well, and the amount of tree, if that would have happened around a populated area rather than in Siberia, I mean, it would be all over the history books instead of just hidden history.
Yeah, it's 1908. I'm sorry, the Tunguska incident. Yeah, event that was in 1908, and the Russian, because Siberia is so far away from the rest of Russia, it took them quite a while to send out an expedition to find out what the fuck happened out there.
Yeah, but I mean, thousands and thousands of acres of trees that were just leveled, laying down,
Yeah, if you look at the black and white pictures of the expedition, it's savage. It looks like basically an atomic bomb blew up, and everything is just destroyed. Yeah.
Well, they've never found no impact on that either.
Well,
so they're saying that it exploded in the atmosphere.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
If that son of a bitch would have hit the ground, Yeah.
Well, it makes you wonder whether or not, like what would happen, let's say, if the same event And thank my fictitious God, this never happened, right? But you could see what would happen if we were just old enough as a species to have nuclear weapons, but not smart enough to have satellites to identify meteors and comets entering the atmosphere at a high velocity. What would have happened, right? The
Wow.
same event happening in, like instead of 1908, it happened in 1958 when both sides had ICBMs, nuclear tipped intercontinental ballistic missiles.
Oh.
2.5 days of labor. Holy fuck, D Parks.
2.5 days?
That's brutal. That is brutal.
You're like superhuman.
Yeah. 2.5 days. That's my ex-wife at the time, and I've told this story before, so forgive me. She wanted to do it completely natural. She didn't want to have any epidurals or any drugs or anything like that. But by hour 20-something, that was done.
Stick me.
Yeah.
Yeah, the daughter. Go ahead.
My first child, I barely remember because it was basically me and my partner at the time fighting over the gas. We're like suck for suck.
Time well spent.
Yeah.
I was high as fuck. I wouldn't have. I don't know. I don't think I would have been still standing otherwise. I was quite young. It was unexpected, so I didn't know what I was in for.
Dude, you could, I mean,
Was you Jehovah at that time, Sammy?
Oh no.
Okay.
I don't think there's any real way to prepare for, if you're a dude, to prepare for that kind of event, right? My only suggestion, if you're someone who's if you're a guy and you're in the room, just make sure that no one fucks up anything, right? That's basically, you're there to pump the brakes if you need to, and to offer support, right? And besides that, good luck.
That's what you're supposed to be there for.
I'm not even. I won't even try to mansplain anything that went on in there.
Yeah. I know that the doctors literally, as my boy was coming out, my boys, they're like, "Come on over and take a look at it." So I walked over and I'm like, "Okay, I'm here."
Did you cut the cord?
Dude, fuck that. I didn't even look. I mean, I did my job. I showed up. I made sure that they didn't fuck up anything. I made sure that my ex-wife got her epidural. Those are the things I did. I checked off the fucking boxes. Did I have to see the actual event? I didn't need to see
They
that.
made me cut. I've cut 3 of those things.
The umbilical cord?
Every time. Yeah. Every time.
Yeah.
I'm not prepared for it. It's like I'm just standing there, and then all of a sudden they've put scissors in my hand, and they're like guiding me in and going, "You've really got to hack at it."
And this might be. Yeah, dude, that's like not right.
I don't want to be hacking at my newborn child right now with these scissors.
Right.
Like, I don't need to do this.
I don't.
This is a tradition that I.
And this
like I said, I did it, but sorry. Go on.
It's one of my more, and you can tell how anxious I am just thinking about this, right? About hacking away. I had this conversation with my with the girlfriend just the other day. Last night, and it was something she was saying about this awkward situation that she was getting put into, and it's like, why don't you just say no? I mean, the power of no is pretty fucking awesome. I am opting out of this thing that you're telling me I need to do. It's like, do I need to do this? I don't know.
I get
I know, but
I
I
get-
felt like I had to.
yeah. Oh, I understand. There's
Right.
pressure. There's pressure.
it hurts me tons to see anybody else in pain. And I mean, I've been splattered out on the road and in bars, and you know, uh, uh, I
No.
can take pain. I just fucking can't see it.
Yeah.
It's
It's a trigger thing for me too, John. There are, in fact, every once in a while you'll see there are, and I don't know what this has to do with, but there are definitely unacceptable thoughts and feelings I have. And it creates this thing.
It's something that's actually a good point to clarify, John. The reason with my first child that it was so traumatic, it wasn't the blood and shit and you know, all the rest of it. That was fine. It was the noise that was coming out of the mother.
oh yeah.
There was nothing I could do.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It was like, what can I do? Let me do something. No, it's like, I can't handle this.
The only birth I ever saw was my daughter. She was a C-section,
Okay.
and I'm just holding Melissa's hand, and she's like, I just tried to keep her as calm as possible. She's like, what they doing? She goes, did I just pee myself? I'm like, well, they're getting ready to cut you, and the baby's already coming out. Just, I mean, the epidural really worked on her.
Oh, that's good, dude. That's
Yeah,
good.
but it was like after that, they're like, you want to hold the baby? And no, fuck, get that shit cleaned up. I gotta go smoke, you know.
Yeah.
It was all I could do is, just to hold her hand. I don't know if I ever really even looked at what they was doing. Just like, yeah, you're okay. This
Looking is not helpful. I mean, for me.
It's funny, John. I remember the first partner that was a mother to my children, said the same thing. Was am I peeing? And I just remember looking and seeing this shit everywhere because they often defecate while giving birth, and blood and all this, fluids and that. And I look back at her and I'm like, no, you haven't pissed at all. It was true.
Yeah.
It was true. I didn't tell her about everything else.
No, I flat out lied.
I am not very helpful in many situations. You might find that hard to believe. I might say something like, how honest do you want me to be on a scale of 1 to 10? Do you want me to answer the question, or do you want me to embellish and tell you what's really going on? Because let me tell you something. I think you're looking at a scale of 1 to 10 scale right now. You want me to say something like maybe a 3, like not really being that honest with you right now. And that's how I'm going to play it. I'm going to play it at a 3.
when it's sitting at like 11.
Oh yeah. Yeah. After 2.5 days in labor and trying everything, they finally gave me a C-section. Yeah.
So that's my current partner's first child, who she had with somebody else, was 2.5 days labor. And then they realized that the baby it couldn't fit. He had quite a large head, and they had to end up doing a C-section.
Yeah.
And it's horrid to think, that you're put through that.
Do you know the origins?
Why wait that long? You'd think 24 hours of labor is something's not right. Like, because this included pushing and not just contractions. Like, we're talking actually trying to give birth.
Well,
For
can you
days.
imagine shitting out a softball? Jesus.
So I had this explained to me by a history professor, and I don't know, this might be urban myth. I'm just trying to figure, because there's information I have roaming around in my head that may not be from the best sources. And so when I'm about to start talking about it. So right now I'm looking up the word, the etymology, about how cesarean became the word cesarean. And just from this Oxford language definition, it's like cesarean from the story that Julius Caesar was delivered by this method. So that is one, that's different from the story that I heard. The story that I heard when I was an undergraduate in Western Civ class, Western history class, is that Caligula, who was crazy, right? Caligula, the Roman emperor.
Yeah, in that case.
Yeah, in that case. He thought he was a god. And then his pregnant wife was, obviously with child. And he's like, well, if I'm a god, then what's in her? And then that was the cause of the cesarean, because he wanted to see what was in there. Yeah. And so I think that might be an urban myth that my history professor told me.
The Caesar one.
What's
that?
that?
It was Caesar or the Caligula.
So I'm going to look at this actually a little bit
because
more.
I always thought that the Caesar one was true, but then I learned that was false.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Yes.
Right.
Caligula was a motherfucker,
Yeah.
Sounds like something he'd go about.
So other possible Latin origins include the verb cedere, C-A-E-D-A-R-E, meaning to cut. Interesting. And the saisons was, I don't know why I said it with that accent, was applied to infants born by post-mortem operations. That's scary.
So C-sections have been going on for thousands of years?
Well, that makes a lot of sense because until modern times, they generally always resulted in the death of the mother.
Right. And you would imagine
The
that
C-section was only to save the baby, not both.
Right. So that's a good point, is that they were probably started off because the mother was already horrible, that the mother was already dead and that they needed to save the baby. So yeah. Wow. Dark. Things you learn, things you think about, right? Dark stuff.
You got a tummy rub there. I need a tummy rub.
You need a tummy rub. Maybe that's alcohol, what you're really looking for. A little Bloody Mary. A little internal tummy rub.
Thank you, doctor.
Simply Secular Dave goes, my mom told the nurses to hold their breakfast. They didn't. She was pissed off and hungry when she got back to I shot out like a pop gun cork. Look at you, Simply Secular Dave.
Yeah, I was a real easy delivery.
Were you? Were you the first, John?
No, I was right in the middle.
Yeah.
I got an older brother, older sister, younger brother, younger sister. I was born actually in Page, Arizona on an Indian reservation by a nun and a cleaning lady. The hospital was a relocatable building. My dad was down there working on Glen Canyon Dam.
Mm-hmm.
And my mom was having contractions and stuff. And the doctor's like, there was a doctor, and he's like, oh, it's going to be hours before he comes, And he took off, and all of a sudden I decided I was going to come out, and there was a nun and a cleaning lady there to deliver me.
Wow.
So, yeah, I came into this earth as a little wild, and maintained it.
At least you're consistent.
Yeah.
My brothers and sisters were all born in hospitals and proper shit, but I blame it on birth.
and I don't want to talk about, be one of those people who talk about their ex-marriages, their ex-wives, but one of the biggest bones of contention was that she wanted to do an at-home birth. And I cannot tell you how many discussions we had while she was pregnant about give me a good, I basically put on my skeptic's hat and said, well, if you could show me research that shows that it isn't freaking dangerous or it's safer than the hospital, then please do. Please do. Because the hospital seems like a safer environment.
Bring in the midwife. It baffles me why anybody would want to torture themselves in their own home, when a hospital's so much cleaner.
So much cleaner.
So
much cleaner. Yeah.
And
there's an industry out there that just wants to fool gullible people into doing, into doing things that are against their best interests.
I mean, I fully understand that, especially the first time being, I can't fully understand, what a stupid thing to say as a male. I can try and imagine that you would want to try and experience as much of it as possible and as naturally as possible, because it is such a magical, and wonderful thing. But we live in a time where it's not necessary anymore. Like, if you can have some drugs and not be in pain, why do it?
Well, I was going to say the magic's in the gas and the epidural. Fuck.
Yeah.
I'll
vouch for that.
You come to a realization when you're at a certain age that no one gives a fuck about your GPA when you're an undergraduate. No one cares about that kind of crap. And it does, 20 years after giving birth, I don't think anyone puts a really high value of whether or not you had the kid or you've got an epidural or not. Like, there's no permanent record, right? What is it going to look like in 20 years? Is this worth it for you to suffer in this way? Is it going to help you pragmatically?
Yeah, I'm not the smartest guy. I finished grade 9. I didn't get my GED till my daughter was going to drop out of school when she was 18. And I'm like, you got to finish, She's like, well, you didn't. I'm like, I'll go do my GED if you will finish high school,
Yeah.
And I went and did it. But yeah, it took me some years. And then I decided I was going to go to school for paralegal.
Oh, cool.
Just to handle my own legal matters that seem to arise in my life often.
Wow, that was nice code, John Hudson. That was nice code.
Well, at least if I'm not stupid enough that I'd represent myself in a court of law, but at least I'd know the right questions to ask the attorney.
Well, that's all you need to know, to tell you the truth. You need to be able to know those whatever number of questions, those 10 questions, and know when someone's bullshitting you. Yeah.
Oh, speaking of that, it's like that Texas law on abortions. That's going to open up all kinds of shit into torts,
Yeah.
And isn't that what the Republicans have been fucking fighting? Oh, we need tort reform for
every
20 years.
And this is it's so difficult for smart people to understand fascism, because fascism, or religion for that matter, right? They innately don't make sense because they're irrational belief systems. So there isn't something like internal consistency. There might be some kind of weird perverse logic to it. But yeah, the Texas law, the law that's coming up for the Supreme Court about Mississippi's 15-week abortion ban. I've heard that's another case that looks like they're going to gut Roe versus Wade, and that's going to be up after the Texas case. Yeah. It's just as like the Dunning-Kruger effect, just as smart people, just as dumb people think that they're smart because they're dumb. There's some kind of there's this veil of knowledge, right? The veil. I heard this explained on a podcast. I think it was Freakonomics or Hidden Brain, that smart people don't understand or cannot wrap their minds around how not smart people think either, because it's like another cognitive universe. 420 atheist. What do you got here, brother?
Here's a little tummy rub for you, John. So you I don't know if you've heard about, but this little girl, Cleo, went missing in Australia.
I heard about
Family
this.
were camping 18 days. Normally at that point, you're like,
Yeah.
you've given up. They found her, and this is just 23 seconds. This is the audio of the moment the police busted in the house and into the room and like, what's your name, darling? Who are you? And I don't know. It's just very touching. So,
All right. Yeah.
We got it. Hey, Bobby.
Bring the camera in.
Come here. I got you, Bobby.
What's your name?
You're alright.
What's your name? What's your name, sweetheart?
My name is Cleo.
Your name is
You're alright,
Cleo.
Bobby.
Hello, Cleo.
That's great. So she was abducted, right? She just didn't wander away. She was stolen.
They've arrested a suspect. Is
Yeah.
the latest.
Yeah.
Well,
That's all they've said.
when Elizabeth Smart was found, I was up working in Federal Heights at that time and on a house. And the news lady, Carol Makita, she lived next door to the house I was working on. She's like, they found Elizabeth Smart. And I'm like, well, where did they find the body? And, she'd been, with that crazy bastard, some religious zealot that,
Yeah.
he
He was Mormon. Wasn't he?
Brian David Mitchell. He was a Mormon, and he changed his name. But it was really weird because like Ed Smart was a cheap bastard, and what was gosh, I'm trying to think. But anyhow, he would go hire people down at the Pioneer Park where a lot of the homeless would live and stuff, and bring them up to the house to and he Brian David Mitchell came back, after he left the job, kidnapped the daughter, had her up in the hills, right up above the house. And I mean, they set out search parties and stuff. And the search parties, because it wasn't professional search parties. It's like everybody from the church came in and went searching through there. And I mean, so in order for somebody to come in there with dogs and, track, the whole area was contaminated because of people.
Yeah.
And, he had her hid up in the hills behind there for a couple of days before he took her on the parade around the United States.
Wow.
So how creepy is this? Because Cryptomaria commented that she was stolen. Not only was she stolen, but she was stolen from within the same tent that her parents were sleeping.
Dude, that's creepy.
So the dude had managed to get in and obviously muffle her and get out.
That don't sound right.
It doesn't, does it? But
No.
my tent has separate rooms,
Oh,
and it's a big tent that then you hook up like little rooms within it, and you can actually make it into a 4-room tent.
interesting. I've never heard of that.
Any tent I've ever been in, that zipper is loud too.
But
you know,
the
what I mean?
zips,
You'd
like,
have to be popping it
they
up,
must be drunk.
or something. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
You know, there's
out
always,
camping. They would have been drinking and
oh yeah,
whatever.
you know, there's so many arguments to having a dog. This is just one of those. You know, for tent protection. What about, yeah.
It just reeks of the dingo stole my baby story, which that poor family was absolutely destroyed because they were blamed. They even went to prison. The mother went to prison and everything. And 30, 40 years later, I think, they've been exonerated because the police come forward. The Aboriginal tracker that they used came forward, and they basically admitted that they falsified evidence. They just wanted a conviction.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So your justice system is just the same as ours.
Whoa, there's no reason to be insulting here, John Hudson.
Not quite, John. Back then,
Yeah.
our system back then's probably
Euro Texas.
Wow. That is so Texan to say that about Australia, that Australia is
John.
Euro Texas. That is so
You guys
funny.
raise beef, don't you? Fucking up the natural
You
resources
live
down
in
there with all your
Texas,
coal.
right, John?
Coal, oil, what's the difference?
I still want to see how many people here in the States confuse Austria with Australia. I think that is
God.
you know, like identify Austria on a map, and then you ask them, identify Australia on a map, and then you see what happens. I think that'd be hilarious. That sounds like a person on the street. Here's a world map. Can you point out Austria?
That the Kepler guy who does that on I can't remember what show, where he goes out and talks to the Trump supporters and stuff.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Oh God, yeah. Have somebody like that. You could do that though, Andy.
Oh, I
with the
could.
map.
Yeah.
You really should do a video, go around and ask people, hey. Yeah.
Well, there's a kids show here I've seen recently. I think it was it was some bizarre hospital TV when I was at their hospital recently with my little one, and it was Australian kids talk to UK kids, and it was just a series of questions and answered by the Australians and by the UK kids. And when the UK kids were asked, where is Australia? The answers were like, in Africa. Like they had no clue. And that's the UK. So
That's the UK. Wow, that's
My grandson's into a show that comes out of Australia. It's Bluey.
Bluey. I
Oh,
knew you'd say that.
I love that. It's such smart. It's like it's wrote for adults. It's so smart.
nothing for me beats bananas in pajamas. That's all I'm saying. Bananas
That's
and
pretty
pajamas,
classic.
walking down the stairs.
B1 and B2.
It be
Are
one
you
and be
thinking
two.
what I'm
Yeah.
thinking, B1? I think I am B2.
if you haven't seen Bananas in Pajamas, you gotta go check it out.
I guess I got to.
Oh, no, it's not as good as Bluey, John.
Okay.
And Bluey is so true to Australian life.
Oh, really?
Absolutely.
So all
it's
dads are
why
funny?
it's-
All dads are
Well,
funny then?
All dads are like that dad. Absolutely.
I love the just everything. Oh,
It doesn't just teach kids, it teaches parents how to be good fucking parents.
yes,
Oh yeah. Mhm.
that's what I think I got out of it the most. You know, it was, but you know, it was, the dad wanted the kids wanted to play skill crane. Dad's like, oh, we're not playing the claw crane, you know.
Claw.
And so
Yeah.
so the dad plays like he's the machine. Well, you got to do some chores to go get the coins to play the machine. And then when his hand would be the claw to go pick up something, he'd drop it. Oh, you better go get more coins. Teaching them the value of money there. You know what I mean? Hey, you might spend money. You might not get nothing. You know what I mean?
And
it's-
obviously the mum comes in and she'll say, like, what are you doing? And he's like, it's a win-win situation. They're getting to play the claw and we're getting the house cleaned.
yeah.
And she goes, you know, neither of those things are happening, right?
Yeah.
The kids' version of cleaning is not cleaning.
No,
Right?
no,
So the adult humor's there too. It's
Right.
It's just
When-
brilliant.
when I had a yard, when I had a house, I would be outside working, and my then wife would be like, "Do you want the kids outside with you to work?" It's like, no, for two reasons. One, not helpful, and two, the reason why I am outside is to be away from them. That's
Oh,
and from you, to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
There's three reasons here.
Yeah.
and if they happen to come out, nothing's going to get done.
Nothing
You
is
know?
going. Yeah, nothing is going to work. It's and if it does work, then it's going to be at a much slower rate.
Well, if I'm out in the yard and stuff, and the grandson comes out and I'm working, next thing I know, we're throwing a ball, or
Yeah.
I'm over swinging on the swing set, and it's like, fuck, I didn't get nothing done all day, you know, because
Well,
then it ends up being lunch. We do ice cream. Hey, let's watch a show, take a nap, you know.
You know, it interferes with daddy's private drinking time outside. That's what it does.
Yeah, I got into that day drinking hard, just but it's like when the vaccine came out, it's like, oh fuck, I don't need this anymore, you know.
Well, if anyone has followed my exploits about my 10-hour long drinking sessions or 12-hour long drinking sessions, yeah, there were days I would post up in my local pub, in my favorite pub, the Burn in Davis Square, and I would just spend, like, on my birthday, I would just spend getting in there at like 11, and then just going. The good thing about it is that they split, you know, the shifts change, right? So they don't know how long you've actually been there for. And
Yeah.
as long as you can pace yourself out, they don't kick you out.
not slurring your
Yeah,
too much.
not spraying the speech. Yeah, exactly.
I've only seen you on one drinking out loud where you got shitty.
Yeah.
But I can appreciate it because I was shitty. I had a hangover for like 3 fucking days.
I think that was probably the shots one. I thought about doing shots. That was bad. That was a poor
I went through a half-fifth of bourbon watching it.
That's a lot. I don't want kids. I want a dishwasher. You know, Cryptomaria, it's good that you have, you know what you want. It's good that you know what you want.
Kids are fun.
You know, I have to tell you, after meeting my biological brothers and sisters, my half brothers and sisters, a lot of my own psychology is much more clear to me because, you know, once again, you know, we create these narratives, but we really don't understand. You know, they're not peer-reviewed papers, right, of who we are in the world. But once again, I just met my family, or half of my birth family, less than a year ago, and it's like, oh, this explains a lot. This, you know, lot, because, you know, my half brothers and sisters, they all have kids, and sometimes a lot of kids, and that explains a lot of my desire to have children when I was younger, I think. No, what are we looking at, 420? Is this Bluey?
No, this is
Bluey.
No, get the fuck to sleep.
You're cozy and warm in your bed, my dear.
by Samuel L. Jackson.
Please go the fuck to sleep.
I said this.
That's nice. That's nice. All right, I gotta start closing down. I gotta start closing down the show because I gotta go to work and I have to fill out some papers and other stuff before going to work. Thanks, Sammy. Thank you, Dr. Tom Foley. Dr. Tom Foley, I just wish you weren't, you know, like dominating the conversation all the time. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Shut up.
John Hudson. Good seeing you, brother.
See you later.
Take care, everyone. Thanks for
You
showing
all
up.
have a great day.
You too.